science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Welcome to Exofathom. I'm your host, Mike, and tonight I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Nick and Ayla. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. A little tired. It's been a long week, I guess.
Yes. I don't even know where we are anymore, so.
Somewhere in space.
That's the truth.
How you doing, Ayla?
I'm good. I got out and did a bike ride today. So I'm feeling a little feisty, a little energized. I got getting my sleep, doing my self-care, taking my herbs. I'm hanging in there.
Look at that. So productive. I took a nap.
Oh my gosh, I love those TikToks or whatever where it's like a dog and a cat or whatever and they're laying there and it's like, I was going to do a bunch of things today, but then I took a nap. And then it's like, and they do it like kind of like a rap music video, but it's like, and I took a nap.
Nice.
So, naps are great though.
They are. So on this Friday, I kind of want to get into some Nietzsche. How do you feel about that?
Does it matter how we feel about it?
Not really. But the question was out of politeness. Oh, God, so you're all happy today.
It's Friday.
Yeah. So, have you ever read any aphorisms? Are you guys fans of aphorisms?
I love aphorisms.
I don't even know what the hell aphorisms are, to be honest, if I'm being honest.
It's amusing. It's a little muse.
It's a small little tale holding some sort of essential truth. So, like, don't fix it if it ain't broke. It might be the easiest of aphorisms. So it's going along with that. But tonight we're going to get into Nietzsche's aphorisms, and he's written a lot of them throughout the course of his life.
Oh yeah.
Both before and after he went crazy. But we're going to try to focus more on the ideas than I guess the author and his life, I suppose. So
his syphilis.
Yeah, his syphilis. He ended up writing letters to Dionysus, which is kind of cool, but also kind of crazy. Anyways, so diving into it, he has been to Hades, and we talked about Hades on one of our deity series. So I kind of picked that up, and kind of the first one I want to dive into. So this is, I believe, taken from, I think it's Mixed Opinions and Maxims, maybe, but the book I'm grabbing it from is from Genealogy of Morals and Ecce Homo, and it's like the appendix where it has 75 aphorisms. But this one goes like this. I too have been in the underworld, like Odysseus, and will be there again. And I have not sacrificed only rams to be able to talk with the dead, but have not spared my own blood as well. There have been 4 pairs who did not refuse themselves to me, the sacrificer Epicurus and Motanke, Goethe and Spinoza, Plato and Rousseau, Pascal and Schopenhauer. With these I have had to come to terms when I have wandered all alone. From there will I accept judgment. To them I will listen when in doing so they have judged one another. Whatever I say, resolve, cognate for myself and others, upon these 8 I fix my eyes, and see theirs fixed upon me. May the living forgive me if they sometimes appear to me as shades, so pale and ill-humored, so restless, and alas, so lusting for life, whereas those others then seem to me so alive, as though now after death they could never again grow weary of life. Eternal liveliness, however, is what counts. What do eternal life, or life at all, matter to us? And that ends the aphorism. So I know it's kind of a long one, but any initial thoughts?
Well, I like the end where he's like, you could be damned, but hey, it's the fact that you're living that counts. You're still good.
The grasp for eternal life. Now, I don't know if Hades is damned, though. It's the underworld, but I think that's like when we start to bring in some Christianity onto it, right?
Right. No, I'm just laughing because he starts out. Well, yeah, I guess he's not really saying one way or the other here, but either way, I like that little cheers to the eternity of the soul.
Yeah. What do eternal life or life at all matter to us? Nick, any thoughts?
I'm trying to parse some of this out, to be honest. You know what gets me most of the time is when people, especially they do this in older literature, where they have like mentionings of other people that were actual people that you have to kind of understand and know in order to get what they're talking about. Tolkien does this, and I know that there was somebody else who did this. Dante in Inferno. A lot of the narration in Inferno and basically the entire Divine Comedy is like him meeting people that he knew in his daily life or people from the culture that were significant. So it's interesting, to have that same sort of reference point. Unfortunately, I don't really know most of these people, so I don't know if I could parse out what he means by these four pairs who have not refused themselves to me.
Yeah, I think I get where you're going. I do agree. Like it is a little bit of. It always sucks when you have to like dig. What is it like? You have to go back and end up reading Epicurus to understand. But in this sense, I think what he means is just like these ancestors that came before him, these thinkers that guide him, sort of thing, and the individual thinkers themselves. Plato we've heard, Epicurus is Stoicism. So like Schopenhauer's the father of pessimism. Pascal did some math things and with some triangles. It's more like, I guess, intelligent people and critics of intelligent people, so-called. I kind of see it as.
Yeah, I would think that there's some sort of, pardon my ignorance, but I would think that there's some sort of significance to the mentioning of these people and what they may have contributed to their fields, and also kind of being a counterbalance to social norms, I would think, at least.
A little bit. Yeah, I would agree. The funny thing is that as he rewrites this, because he goes on in later books and he adds and changes the names. So it's like the most critical part of this aphorism are the names, oddly enough. But I do find the idea of sacrificing rams and sparing, like, then cutting himself, or not sparing his own blood, and like as we talked in the last episode, kind of this mentalism type thing where the whole universe is mental. Do you think he's not, like, he's talking about the blood of his soul and like the rams of his soul, like these ideas or these characters that he made in his own head, and those are the things he's sacrificing rather than some crazy bizarre blood ritual?
Well, I certainly hope he wasn't practicing blood rituals, because maybe that's where the syphilis came from. But yeah, I definitely think that whatever he's referring to as far as the sacrificial ram blood is some sort of metaphor for sure. I don't know exactly, maybe perhaps what he's speaking on, but it would seem metaphorical definitely to me. Perhaps the concept of just Nietzsche kind of always seemed to me that he fancied himself an outsider, at least an outside thinker, and especially in this aphorism, it kind of shows. So maybe he perhaps thinks of himself, to have pioneered some sort of rebellion or renegade thinking that puts him in the annals of Hades amongst the people he most reveres.
I'd see that. He's definitely critical of a lot of thinkers, and things like Bessar's Thustra, he talks about his knack for investigation and just a general criticism of scholars. So he is like a renegade thinker, but I kind of want to separate him from the idea. That's all. Like, yeah, of course the author's ego comes into it and author's things, but I do find it interesting as a little standalone thing. And I think you got syphilis the old school way.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. So let me ask you
the old
then.
School way.
Well, just
one day when you grow up.
Okay. Well, no, I thought maybe like that's where my mind went, but I was like, well, maybe it's like mice or something.
No.
I don't know. These were crazy back then.
Mike, let me ask you then, what do you think the crux of this, like if you could distill this down into one of the sentences or maybe even your own sentence, what do you think the main point he's getting at is?
So I'm gonna give you like a weird answer. So I had a dream, and in this dream, this is pretty vivid. I was laying on the bed, and I was in somewhere that I'd never been. But I looked down at my arm and I saw these worms crawling slightly, just like burying into my skin and like crawling under my skin. And so I took a box cutter that was, to my right, and I grabbed it and I ended up like cutting out these worms and spilling a little bit of blood. And there was no pain anymore. There's nothing like that. But I was able to get these worms out, and the dream ended with me finding a cluster of worms. So I think the parallels as far as like spiritual bloodletting goes to the self, to kind of get into the underworld where you can do the sort of shadow work and things like that and start to mess around with the idea of eternal liveliness. I think it comes through that sort of spiritual bloodletting. And to me, that's the sort of crux of this.
I really like... Oh, go ahead.
And I'll go for... I can hold my thought, Ayla.
No. Please continue, because I want you to round it out.
Okay. And then as far as like these ancestors, that's like once you cross that threshold, you find the words of the past, like these dead men and how they communicate to you through books or through whatever. It comes to be more valuable than the words of the living. And it is true that the living does start to lose some sort of shine to it. Imagine like you see them brushing around so busy, and it's like, what am I looking at? So I think that's where those, like, as far as revering the dead comes from, or those wise men,
Well, yeah, and I really like the parallel. I'm kind of missing the connection between the worms. It's just like the idea of bloodletting and letting go of like shadows and things that are holding you back. Is that kind of the...
No, just like a spiritual change. So worms are a symbol of some. If you believe like dream journals and these things.
I love dream journals.
Yeah, like that dream, like dream analysis. It tends to hold the idea that there's something going wrong with you spiritually. Like these worms have a symbol of kind of getting into your brain or into your spirit.
Like a symbol of decay.
Yes. Or rot from within.
That's interesting. Well, and to that, because the thing, I love Nietzsche because I love reading his work very slowly and very deliberately and multiple times. And I think he gets that. That's why he does these little thought out aphorisms, because when you break each sentence down and then each word, it starts to really just get rich and juicy. So for instance, like the difference between Plato and... So like these, like you were saying, these two sets, they oppose one another in various thoughts and theories. With Plato and Rousseau, which I'll admit, I just Googled them, but they were saying that the fundamental difference with them is that Plato thinks that man is a social creature, and Rousseau believes that man is the opposite, more inward, more self-focused. And so, that fundamental difference, it's like nature versus nurture, or is man genuinely good or is man genuinely bad? These are things we debate because we don't know for sure. But having that information guides us in the way that we build our societies and our rules and our laws and things like that. And so I think it's really interesting because he's talking about this descent into Hades, and if you don't take that as a negative, but more as a descent into ancestry, then it makes it really great. Because with Nietzsche, he's kind of lumped in with the existentialists, and that movement was really heavily criticized for having wild ideas. But the thing is that people didn't understand that the philosophy was an individualized philosophy. So there's no such thing as a category of existentialists. They rebelled against it, and each individual author tries to say, like, no, this is what I mean it to say, but that doesn't define it. That just defines it for me. And I remember when I first read Existentialism is a Humanism, Sartre's talking just about that, defending the genre and defending the philosophy. And what I love about this one is it's like Nietzsche probably is saying, like, to my authors or my readers, forgive me if I vacillate from one extreme to the other, if I don't stick rigidly to my individual path, because I too am seduced by the different poles of these different ideas that I then, I see them and they see me. And it's something where you do, as a philosopher, have to consider the other side just as much as your side in order to create a full and complete body of work and topics. So I got really excited. I remember Nietzsche.
No,
I like him. They make me happy.
that was a pretty cool dive. That was an awesome dive.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would agree. Like the polarity of these authors and Nietzsche existing in the middle, and going into human, all too human. He speaks about the analogy of a dance, that life must be kind of dance between these poles. And I think these are kind of good good authors to set up as your poles and kind of dance in between them as life goes on.
Oh, for sure. And what I love, because you were talking about shadows, and the word shades threw me, because I was like, okay, first of all, how does Nietzsche understand, like, 2020, like, giving shade? Like, that's such a new term. Like, so I was like, I don't know, is that what I think it means? But
right word, wrong connotation.
Right, exactly. But he talks about, so may the living forgive me if they sometimes appear to me as shades. Now, the they, I think he's talking about, is he talking about his readers, or is he talking about the ancestors?
I think he's talking about the living.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the living. So that, like, being able to communicate with the dead has made his view on the living, like, or the living to him, just seem like a shadow of its former self, a shade of itself.
Right. Mm-hmm. But then what I kind of gleaned from it was, like, may the living forgive me if they, being these other theories, sometimes appear as shadows within my own work. That might be totally wrong, but I don't know. Like, I like the idea that he's kind of apologizing for his shadow self in a way of saying, like, they have to come alive. You don't think so?
No, because I think he's kind of mocking the hustle and bustle of everyday life when he's kind of romanticizing this place in which the true thinkers of the world are, enshrined forever. When he looks back into the world of the living, he sees people who are just so lusting for life, as he says, but not really actually living.
And see, this is why I literally read his stuff like a million times over, because, like, I keep interpreting it in different ways, and then it's like, when you can hold on to each sentence, you're like, oh, this makes, like, so much sense. But, like,
I do enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't know.
The questionable they, though, like, may the living forgive me if you use they as the dead philosophers. I can see it where, like, it can get very confusing where you're talking to somebody and then you just have this ghost appear and whisper something into your ear.
Right.
Well,
it would be poor grammar too, because technically when you have an antecedent, it should directly, like, be right there. I don't know.
About grammar. No, I'm just kidding.
Mike, can you pull yourself closer to the microphone?
Sure.
You sound a little far.
Oh, sorry. My bad. No, I'm battling in between getting too close, getting too far, and then hurting my back.
No worries.
My back.
My back. Yeah. So, are we good with this one? Did you guys want to move on? Any other ideas?
No, I think I understand. It. Yeah, I think I understand it now. I think as Ayla said, there's a lot to kind of parse out. And for some reason, especially with Nietzsche, it triggers my dyslexia. And so I read all of his stuff like jumbled, and I have to read over and over and over again to understand the sentence.
Oh, that's just him, man. He's the thing about him that pisses me off is I took a creative writing class once in my life and never again. I'm too sensitive to do that, like, legit. like the first assignment, I wrote this poem and I was like obsessed. I was like, this is the best poem ever. I'm so smart. I can't wait to read it, right? And the first thing my teacher said is, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, it's right there on the paper, dude. He's like, no, you're using terms. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? And so it's just really funny because here you have Nietzsche who writes these little pithy things with these like inside jokes, and you have to like he doesn't let you in at all. There isn't any sentence after, he represents the dichotomy of these 4 different groups of people going like, and let me break that down. And then, teasing out the differences with the semicolon. Like that would help your reader so much, dude. But you're not going to do it because you're kind of a dick.
Here's a question, though, too. In the line that he says, I have not sacrificed only ram's blood to be able to talk with the dead, but I have not spared my own blood as well? Or is I have spared my own blood as well?
Have not spared my own blood as well. This is also a...
So then he's purposely being confessatory because that is a nonsense sentence.
Well, this
and
is
blood's
also,
not even blood.
So
he
this
might
is
not even be
also
using that.
A translation I got. There's multiple translations, but it's different than the one I have in my book. This is one I got from online.
I fucking hate that. Sorry, I just took a side note, but so I've always wanted to learn French because I was reading something one time and it was like 2 totally different interpretations of some piece, and it all came down to the actual translation of it. And I was like, how am I ever gonna know what these people meant? And like I had this moment of crisis where I was like, I need to learn every language. And it's really hard. Sorry, I'm geeking out.
That's not necessary.
It's good. Do you want to hear the the sentence in the book? Did you try to grab some clarity? I too have been in the underworld like Odysseus, and shall be there often yet. And not only rams have I sacrificed to be able to speak with a few of the dead, but I have not spared my own blood.
Oh, you have not spared his own blood. So I get what he's saying. He's spilt his blood. He hasn't spared it, like kept it for himself. To see, like there's multiple
he doesn't have a familiar. Because there was a familiar popping up like, give me your blood, I am Demon Ferret. And he's like, I'm not spilling my blood to go to the underworld.
No, I'm really trying to get to the bottom of this really quick. Seriously, because this sentence bothers me because it throws me off.
Okay, good call, Nick. Okay.
So, but I think I understand now what he's saying, and it's that he has spilt his own blood, but he says, I have not spared my blood. By saying that, he means that he has not spared spilling his blood.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I just find the idea of like these rams interesting. Like there might have been parts to himself that are very ram-like. There may be other people. What astrological sign is the ram? Is it an
Aries?
It's like a goat, though. It's a little witchy.
Aries. It's
like
Aries.
Familiar.
Yeah, it could be all those. Like if he's thrown people under the bus, and if that's what he means by spilling their blood, not actually throwing people under the bus, because I don't think there was buses back then, but like metaphorically speaking,
destroying their ideas.
You used to sacrifice rams in order to speak with the gods, though, like quite literally. That was a practice.
So that's what I'm saying is like I think that what he's saying is that he's sacrificed some of these figureheads intellectually in his various arguments, but that people need to forgive him in turn because they're going to find remnants of both, and he can't help that.
I'm just reading this literally. I have been to the underworld like Odysseus, and I will be there again. I have not only sacrificed ram's blood to talk to the dead, I have also sacrificed my own blood. Yeah. That's what he's saying. No?
So it might have been an actual blood ritual, yeah.
Or he's just speaking metaphorically because that's the way they used to talk to the dead in more ancient times.
Right. So who's the sacrificial ram then?
It doesn't matter. I don't think the ram matters. I think the ram is just a way you contact the dead because that's the way they used to do it back in the Greek days.
But then look at the next sentence. There have been 4 pairs who did not refuse themselves to me, the sacrificer.
Yeah, and then he goes on to name them.
The rams that he sacrificed. He's calling them his rams. Does he not?
I think they're coming to him after she sacrificed. So I think maybe the rams might have been like either his own ideas, like his own spiritual selves, or somebody else's spiritual self that is like an Aries, or that can be kind of seen as a ram type person.
See, this is where I like go into my hermit mode, or I go to the subterranean library and I sit on my little chair and I sit there and I read this like 5,000 times. Like, what does he mean? And then I'll read what someone else says and I'm like, but are they right? And so, do you know what book this came from him, or is it like a set of?
It's under mixed. In mine, it's in the genealogy of morals and eco homo, but it's in the appendix. But it's from Mixed Opinions and Maxims.
Maxims.
Yes, it's the last one.
I like Nick's little scoff. Mixed Opinions and what is it? And Maxims. Yeah, that is kind of a funny little chapter.
1879. But yeah, so cool. Like I'm happy I've brought on more questions than answers. It always feels good as a philosopher. Because I don't think he's looking for forgiveness either. And he's like, may the living.
No,
he's
I don't
like
think
putting
so
it
either.
out there. He's like, look, if you can forgive me, that'd be great. But if not, I get it. Just know that I'm chasing this eternal life thing, and I'm sorry.
I think it's also too that he spent so much time thinking about the people that were already dead that like he feels like he spent more time in the underworld than he has in the real world. Like if you're thinking about the four pairs that haven't refused him, like those are all dead people that he's probably spent a lot of time contemplating, the thought patterns and existences of. And so it's like when you spend that much time around dead people and their philosophies, when you look out into the actual living world, it doesn't make sense anymore.
It's very true.
I like that.
Everything becomes like a pale shade.
Mm-hmm.
I love your mind. Like, so cute. Okay, sorry.
Thanks, I guess.
No, you're just so cute because I know you're sitting there with your squinty eyes like, this sentence doesn't make sense. And it's the same thing I do. It's just, but it's like in you version. It's so cute. Anyway, you too, Mike. I mean, you guys I like chatting with you guys. Your minds are cool.
Cool. That's cool. So we're gonna, I think, any other things? Because I'm gonna give you guys a choice. So I kind of want to clear the headspace for a second.
No, I think, yeah. I think I grasp it now.
I don't now.
Super awesome.
Yeah, I must reread.
So I'm gonna give you a choice. We can go over the philosopher's error, opinions, tourists, dying for the quote unquote truth, taking seriously, or on the question of being understandable. And that last one is very long. It's a couple pages.
I like the philosopher's error.
Yeah, I was gonna say either that one or taking seriously.
Well, since I am on the philosopher's errors page, the law of convenience is going to work.
Awesome.
So the philosopher's error. The philosopher supposes that the value of his philosophy lies in the whole, in the structure, but posterity finds its value in the stone which he used for building, and which is used many more times after that for building better. Thus, it finds the value in the fact that the structure can be destroyed and nevertheless retains value as building material. And that's the end of it.
Say that. Okay, so can you read that one more time?
Yeah.
I'll read it as many times. The philosopher supposes that the value of his philosophy lies in the whole, in the structure, but posterity finds its value in the stone for which he used for building, and which is used many more times after that for building better. Thus, it finds the value in the fact that the structure can be destroyed and nevertheless retains value as building material.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
It does. Well, it makes me think of like logic puzzles. If you are doing like a logic problem and you get stuck, you can always go backwards and you're like, okay, well, these little building blocks are still true. So I can stay here and I just have to, like, it's all true up until that point. Yeah, exactly. And
well,
so
it also it's the concept of having a good foundation for your philosophy to grow upon anyway. Because then whatever it
Right.
goes into can be knocked down and you keep the meat of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like this notion with like the idea of faith, kind of like keeping your faith, but not so much like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater as far as any sort of religion goes, you know, or morality, I guess.
Mhm.
How you can, destroy these structures of thought of, I guess, your psyche in a sense. But if you retain those building blocks of the psyche, you can rebuild yourself. And I find it like pretty cool, pretty
Hmm.
in a weird way, like romantic, like in a self-esteem, self-love kind of way. Like you can annihilate yourself in any way and then build yourself back up.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I like that. Recently I read something, and it was talking about focusing on your whys. So, like some people would say it's really good to meditate in the morning. It starts your day off and it gives you clarity and focus. And so sometimes it's nice if you're kind of stuck, is to just take a minute and rethink, like, okay, well, who am I? Who do I want to be, and how do I want to show up in this world? And what am I working for, and why do I do what I do? And sometimes just that really just helps put a like a cloak over everything, and it lets you kind of just recenter. So yeah, I kind of like that interpretation of that too. It's nice. Although I do wonder, because it says philosophers' error is the error that they just think that it's everything, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's the sum of the parts.
It's the foundation of the whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike said, yeah, if you have a solid foundation within your own psyche, then you're able to adapt yourself and change yourself and remold yourself endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't lose yourself. You don't lose that essence of what the core philosophy was. And also, building concepts, like building your philosophies on true concepts helps you kind of mold them in ways that you want to, and then always knock the Legos over when you're ready to change it up, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
really losing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I like it too, in the lens of like philosophy, because the way he writes is these little bits and pieces that are all like little standalone truisms or observations, and then collectively they build his like ethos or whatnot. But they're kind of still their own separate thing, open to interpretation separately and as a whole, which I kind of like.
Yeah, it's cool that you can evaluate it as a whole, but the idea I think is to always keep your philosophy modular, like in a way that you can unplug certain modules and then plug other ones in. Once you find out that like this is a bad module or something like that, then the
Totally.
value of philosophy doesn't lie in like the structure of Nietzsche's work, but it lies in the stone 201 philosopher's error.
Hmm.
That's the building material that he used to build his philosophy that's now being passed to you, and you don't need to take the whole structure of the Ubermensch or the whole structure of whatever philosophy that you deem worthy to pick up, but you can kind of make your own, which is really cool.
Hmm. How do you define the Ubermensch?
Somebody who
Isn't
is
that where you
not a
get free delivery?
well, there's two. Like, so you asked me how I define
He's
it.
from the future, I'm telling you.
Future
I mean, look at his
delivery.
mustache too. He's like totally like a millennial hipster that went back in time. Sorry, it's a very big mustache.
Do you think he's not born yet?
Oh gosh.
I mean, we have time travel now, right? Like some guy from the future who went back into time,
Yo,
wrote a bunch of books, and then
I just
bounced
watched,
the hell out.
seriously. Well, I just watched with Nick Star Trek, the one with the Romulans, and they can like go backwards in time to mess up Spock because of. Well, I'm not going to ruin it for people, but good movie. But it also set my mind spinning because I was like, yeah, if we ever do figure out how to time travel, once somebody like it doesn't matter how far in the future, assuming somebody figures it out, they could always come back now, which is weird to think because, sorry,
Well,
I'm
then
tangent. I'm going off.
you got to also suppose that if that's the case, then the world should already be destroyed.
I mean,
the
I
time
guess.
continuum should be like, obliterated by now if time travel had been created in the future yet.
What a way to rob your past of like being like, you know what, I gotta go back and fix some things, and then it turns out that that's the like you fix the things to make them the way they always were.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
Time
mean, like,
paradoxes are fun.
they are fun. Well, and I wonder too, like, if what is how do you quantify and define
Are you going to do
X?
who, what, where, with it? What?
No, I'm getting there. Okay.
Okay.
So from X point in time, which is now, to Y, which is the point at which humans in the future can travel backwards in time, assuming that point at Y, the person comes back to now, what happens to the distance between X and Y at all the different variables? You know what I mean? Like,
It's all one point.
Becomes a loop, right?
I don't
Just
know.
becomes a circle.
I really want to know more about these things. Let's all go take a physics class and like debrief on our Friday podcast. I think. Well, would that even be physics? I don't.
They need to teach normie physics just for people who want to learn like cool things like time loops and stuff. I don't want to have to go through like 3 years of boring physics schooling to learn about the mechanics of time.
Okay, Veruca Salt, I want it now.
Here's a quick daily lesson on like discrete equations so we can understand time.
Sure.
Exactly. Done.
There's some tachyon equations in there too. Why not?
Yeah, I'll pick them up. Give me like 2 days to get them. I got them. I got them.
Yeah.
And if any of our listeners know anything about what I'm talking about the distance from X to Y, I'm just curious because, yeah, like Nick said, if somebody discovered it, then they would have already been here by now. But the future is going on and no one's discovered it yet because nobody's come back yet, in theory.
The only snag in that is that we could just not be at the current point in time that they come back into the past. So it could be that they come back into to 2030, or they come back to 2050. Who knows?
Right, so. Right. But I'm still wondering about the time distance. I could continue on. I watched Terminator also last week. This is quarantine activities, and so yeah, time travel's been on my mind. We should do a little exo bit on that.
Here, you want an answer? You want a proper answer?
I want an aphoristic answer. What does Nietzsche say on time?
Time doesn't exist. Don't worry about it.
Oh, cool.
There it is. It's done.
It's done. All right.
Done. Oh yeah. No, do you guys want to grab? Is that all? Are we? Did you kind of grab the gist of the philosopher's error?
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Sweet.
Yeah, that one was a lot more straightforward
than diving through the depths of Hades.
Yeah, I just think that one sentence just threw me off, and I couldn't understand the entire thing. So
seriously, the whole time you were talking, Mike, I was rereading it like 10 times. Like. Refers to this chunk, but this is opposite of this chunk. This refers to this. Yeah, it's dense.
So then I think I want to finish up with one last one real quick. Mm-hmm. And this one is on tourists. And this one is an easy one to chill with.
Wait, tourists. It's called Tourists, right?
Yeah.
See, this person did go back in time because they watched Fight Club and they were listening to Tyler Durden talk about.
Get to his point.
Okay. Sorry. I'm real chatty.
They climb mountains like animals, stupid and sweating. One has forgotten to tell them that there are beautiful views on the way up. And that's it. This is one of my favorite aphorisms. Because it is true. Like there's this weird thing that like when I've been a tourist or like when I've gone visited, there's like an itinerary list of things to get through. Or like we're gonna go on this hike, then we're gonna go do this, and then like people only take pictures from like the bottom to like the top. Like no one rests in the middle. No one ever enjoys the view. It just seems like tourists always have a destination to get to instead of enjoying this place that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And even with like philosophy too, like they want to grab certain ideas, but they don't want to enjoy the process of building up to those ideas because it's tiring,
Well, it's a metaphor for life in general, I would assume, right? It doesn't really matter what you call the destination, whether it's the top of a mountain or a career or, some sort of model you have for your future. The concept still remains the same, that if you're huffing and puffing trying to get to your destination, you're not realizing the view that's passing you by.
Yep.
And Alanis Morissette said very good. She said it was like that waited. Was it? Oh shoot! I just had it. It was like he waited 10,000 years for something, and then he got it and died the next day.
No, I think you're mixing like three of those up. You mixed up 10,000 spoons when all you needed it as a knife, and then won the lottery and died the next day.
That's what it is. Yeah. Yes. Won the lottery.
You waited for 10,000 spoons and then died the next day.
I know you love Alanis, and I didn't mean to disrespect your lady. Yeah. My bad.
And that, no, I know that song because it drives me crazy, because none of that is irony. None of it is irony in that song. I can't even get into it. It just drives me crazy.
Wait, isn't it? No, wait. What?
No,
wait, is it ironic that it's not ironic?
I guess.
That's the whole meaning of the song?
Maybe.
She's not that smart.
She's the original hipster.
Well, but you know what's funny too? When you read that last one, I was thinking about the folks that, like the pictures you'll see recently of these ice mountains where they have these like climbers, and it's supposed to be this really difficult thing, but you've got like Sherpas who are dying trying to lay the path for these tourists, and then the tourists are lined up. They're not appreciating the ascent. They're just waiting to get to the very top and take a photo, which is like a literal correlation. But I mean, it's still true today.
So
I don't know how much you can enjoy the view while you're trying to climb Everest, though.
Right, or knowing that like a lot of people died laying that road. I was shocked. I was like, how
I suppose, but when your oxygen levels are at like 82% and there's no air in the atmosphere,
it's really difficult to enjoy things in life.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I don't know what's wrong with other mountains. Like, I've hiked mountains and I had a great time. I never thought to myself, you know what this needs? This needs to be steeper and longer and, harder. Like, no, it's just hike a regular mountain. You could be fine.
Oh, cool. I'm all out of aphorisms for tonight. Well, I mean, I have more, but I think we can hold on for another one.
Awesome.
There's definitely stuff to explore.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure we'll come back to it for sure. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. That was a nice, fun conversation. Always enjoyable. Thank you, Ayla, for your input as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. Hope that you enjoyed this little conversation. We will be back on Monday. We're going to be starting our Spooktober series, where we get into some spooky themes for the month of October. So
I'm excited. Monday, can I tell them what we're going to talk about, or should it be surprise?
Sure.
Ooh, okay. So if you are listening to this, you want to keep an eye out for the October 12 episode. It's going to be on mummies and curses, because we all know it's 2020, and we just saw that some people desecrated some sarcophaguses and opened them, and I know we're all thinking about it, and it's going to be cool to kind of see where that correlation came to be and learn about that. So mummies and curses.
All right. Stay tuned, you guys. We have a lot of great ideas and episodes coming up for you. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave us some feedback on what you guys thought, what you might want us to talk about in the future. Please consider going to thinkring.space to check out the other family of podcasts we have there. We got Keelan's If Numbers Could Talk. We have Jose's The Plank with Joe. We also have the Think Ring Report. as well as this very show here, Exofathom. Please consider following us on Facebook and YouTube and on Instagram at Exofathom, all one word. And until next time, Cognonauts, you stay out there, and we will catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.